Welcome to the Phoenix Experience, a podcast from Pfeiffer University's longest continuous literary journal, The Phoenix. This season is all about our staff, who only talk about the best books they've encountered and their passionate opinions on topics from A to Z. Today I'm here with Alexis Speaks, our event coordinator for The Phoenix and our social media manager.
It's a pleasure to be here, Shayla.
Why, thank you. So today we're going to be talking about the Hunger Games book to movie adaptation.
So, I personally think that The Hunger Games was one of the only book-to-movie adaptations that didn't make me want to claw my eyes out.
Really?
Take Harry Potter, for example. In the fourth book, The Goblet of Fire, they remove an entire battle. But in The Hunger Games, they include all major aspects of the book into the movie.
That's really interesting because I've always had issues with the Hunger Games movies.
Really?
I liked them, but I really wanted the green pea colored people.
Ah, yes.
That was my major complaint through the entire series. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see people colored differently as the book described.
Like the capital people?
Yeah, the capital people. Because they just looked like they were just done up. And that's about it.
Yeah, I've not thought about that before, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted that level of authenticity as far as how odd the capital culture was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one major thing that I did not like about the movies. But the pacing and the plot I thought was really great with all of them.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really hard for movie people to adapt everything that book lovers such as ourselves would want in movies. But I do agree that the capital people could have been a bit more eccentric.
Yeah, but aside from that, well done as far as the adaptation. I really enjoyed reading the book. And it was almost a cultural phenomenon when we were growing up.
I agree.
Because it was a reading requirement in my school class, so I just assumed, hey, why are we reading a book that's kind of current?
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting a movie soon. So what's up with that?
I think it was the sort of surge of the dystopian society novels, The Giver and The Hunger Games, Divergent, things like that. I think that The Hunger Games was the most kid-friendly of them all, maybe, to the school board.
I don't know if it's even kid-friendly because there's kids killing each other. So
there are kids killing each other.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they picked that book out of all the other ones. I did read The Giver in middle school along with The Hunger Games.
I did too.
They were all split into different grade levels, so that was also interesting. I think...
Maybe they were planning to kill us all.
That's so dark. But maybe. I doubt it, but... But, there's something that's kind of special about our generation and those movies. The emergence of the dystopian and just... I don't know, there's something really interesting about a society that's flipped upside its head and is using children in a battlefield as entertainment to control population, which seems very far-fetched based on what I just said.
I know, but when you think about life, you think about how we relate to these characters. And so, for me specifically, I think Katniss is one of the characters in my entire childhood that I resonate the most with.
Yeah, I've always went back to Rue. Is it Rue?
Yes. Oh, I love Rue.
I love Rue. I just love how in the first book, their relationship, despite being from two different districts, I really related to that relationship because they're two strangers put in that horrible situation, trying to navigate it. A little girl. I've never had a situation like that, but I'd like to think
I hope not.
that... Yeah, but I'd like to think if I were in her shoes that I'd be a Katniss and do my best to look after a little girl who shouldn't even be in there in the first place.
Sort of the wounded and the warrior kind of aspect.
Yeah, I think Katniss is one of those characters that she's kind of not perfect in the wrong sense, but perfect as far as morals and being a feminine character that also can back it up and be strong and caring and compassionate.
Yeah, she's very empowering to women. Rue looked up to her as a role model in the situations that they were in, which, are awful.
Yeah.
But, you have to find some sort of hope to look after.
Yeah. I just like how she was played out. I really hated... In case you don't know, there are spoilers in this episode.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, spoiler alert. The ending... I don't want to say, who dies or anything, but how that ending how it's shaped who she is and how she's progressed.
The ending of
the actual series.
Okay.
And how everything beforehand, her character, I don't think it really wavered that much. Of course, there were those doubtful moments, but I think she always stayed true to herself.
And I think that's the humanistic nature that Suzanne Collins put in Katniss's character.
Yeah.
I just want to say, this is hilarious to me, that Suzanne Collins went from writing the Berenstain Bears to this.
That is just, I don't know how you do that, but she did.
She did. A woman of many talents.
Yeah, I mean, create such a compelling world that I find myself always wanting to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like dystopian realities. I like being able to think about how situations like that even come about. And if we were to ever have a situation like that, which I don't think is anywhere in the future, but
hopefully
to be able to navigate situations of a similar vein.
I agree, yes. I think that what I do when I read books specifically is I put myself in those characters' shoes.
Yeah, you have empathy for them.
Yes. I am an empath, so. But in Katniss's shoes, in particular, with her younger sister, Primrose, that's a role that I've been put in with my younger brother, where I've had to look out for him in specific situations where he has made wrong choices or my family has not been able to be there for them. Like, my parents have not been able to be there for him, so I've had to step up and assume that role.
Yeah, and she's what I think is she is a person, but a personification of the best big sister you can have.
Yes.
Because her mother, after her father's death, is totally distraught, can't really help that much.
Mm-hmm.
But, Katniss still goes out. She breaks the law to bring food to her sister and her family.
Mm-hmm.
She's very caring, compassionate to those around her. She makes sure that they're taken care of. Even a cat, who's just awful.
Aww.
Even though I love cats, he's like an awful cat.
He is, yes. I do think that part of Katniss's childhood was definitely shaped by Peeta with the bread.
Yeah.
And
how he rejected her being able to take the food.
Right, yes. And I think Peeta as a whole is the example of a perfect...
Well, yeah, he starts off like a total jerk.
Right.
And then, people tend to like Gale as opposed to Peeta, and there's that whole love triangle that gets put on the back burner, but then it's...
Which I love that it's put on the back burner, because Katniss is like, okay, well, screw this. I don't want to have to deal with two boys following me around. She's like, I'm my own person.
Yeah, and I always hated how the love story between Peeta and Katniss came about, because it was to publicize why they should survive. It was obsessive. Yeah, I know it was an act, but I think Peeta really bought into it. And I hated that.
I did too.
And all throughout that, you just feel incredibly uncomfortable because Katniss's heart isn't in it, but then at the end, she is in it.
But is she really? I mean,
yeah.
I'm Team Gale, but that's just...
Yeah, I was Team Gale too.
I mean, he's the one that's there the entire time.
Yeah, he's the caring, compassionate one. I don't know what happens to him. I guess the
he
book
marries
kind of dropped
someone
him
else,
off.
I believe.
Oh, he did? That's sad. I mean, I feel like the book dropped him off at some point in favor of Peeta, and then the movies did that tenfold. Which
I think was in correlation with the movies, because as people were, hashtagging teams. I'm such an old lady.
This reminds me of the Twilight.
They were saying, Team Peeta, people were buying into that romanticism of the almost, not stalkerish, but just kind of sad puppy dog.
Yeah. And I'm not too crazy about shipping in, series, even if they end up becoming the actual pairing. I'm not crazy about that stuff. So I did appreciate for most of the book that you could also interpret it as Katniss being a caring friend.
I agree with that.
Until the very end. Spoilers, people.
Until the very end.
Yeah, so, I mean, overall, the series I think the movie adaptation did a great job.
I agree. You know what's funny? I actually auditioned for the movie.
You did?
I did. I auditioned as an extra to begin with, and then they had me go back and audition for Primrose, and I made it into the final 3, and I got to read with the mom. Aww. But then they said that I looked too much like Jennifer Lawrence, and we were the same height, so they were like, sorry.
That's not cool.
Yeah, I got offered to be an extra in it, but I was like, I'm a little sad now, so.
Yeah, that is really sad. Like, you could have been in the Hunger Games.
I know.
And did they do filming in North Carolina?
They did, actually. They did it all over North Carolina, and I believe they actually did it only like an hour away from Pfeiffer.
That's really cool.
It is really
Yeah, because also if you think about where the districts are, District 12 is kind of around here.
It is, yes.
And then the capital's off wherever else, maybe in the middle.
I kind of pictured the capital as like New York when I was reading, but more colorful, I guess.
Yeah.
Or the Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz.
Yep, I just wish they were more flashy with the colors.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I loved how Ellie looked. She looked glorious. Don't get me wrong, but I wish she had been as accurate as the book had played her
I do
as.
think that they did a great job with Seneca Crane, the gamekeeper.
Yeah, he was great.
He looked as I pictured him, which was...
Yeah, that was really odd because I think the same thing. Because a lot of them didn't disappoint. When I read, what I expected wasn't that far off from what the movie picked. Is there a favorite part of the movie or book that you really like?
Out of all of the movies in particular, I think that one of my favorite scenes is when Katniss's costume designer gets killed right in front of her, and she's on her way up the tube into her second round of the Hunger Games. Jennifer Lawrence's acting in that moment, I think, is some of her best work that she's ever done.
Yeah, that scene was just...
It was terrible, but it makes you...
I'm getting goosebumps again thinking about it, because it was very impacting.
It's impacting, and that's what I like to see in movies, not all the gushy, oh, the sun is shining, and...
Yeah, not all the
The hills are alive!
The hills are alive, dear.
Even though I love the sound of music.
I mean, my favorite part of the first movie was Peeta's camouflage.
Oh!
It's just so funny.
It's so funny because he decorates cakes, and so, like, I picture him, with frosting on his face.
Yeah, but no, it's like this green earthy color, and it just...
It makes no sense, because how would he get the materials to do that?
Exactly, unless they just floated in like paint.
Movie magic, people. Movie magic.
Movie magic. That was the funniest scene out of all the series. And it's the one that I think about when I think about the Hunger Games first, which is really sad because I should be thinking about everything else. But that was my closest chance to the green people, I guess.
I also love in Mockingjay when Katniss makes her cameo at the site of the bombings that they've done.
Yeah, when she sees the people.
When she sees all the people hurt and she goes up and the city's in flames, or the district is in flames, and she makes that promotional video. Yeah. It's so powerful.
Yeah, and there's a lot to love about the Hunger
Games.
There is
a lot.
There is so much. It's a mystery because the 13th district, what happened to them?
Right.
Who's going to win? Right. Suspense, horror, action, romance.
So many plot twists throughout as well.
Yeah, plot twists that I don't know, maybe I could have catched them now, but growing up with it, never saw coming.
Like her having to go back into the Hunger Games.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I know. I was about to cry for her,
Yeah, she just went through so much, and they're just gonna throw her back in there?
I do think that I actually sobbed my eyes out when I finally finished the books, though.
Oh.
Just because I was so sad that it was over.
Yeah, and I think that's the worst when a book ends.
These characters become a part of you. When it ends, it's like, oh, your friends are gone.
Yeah, and the magic's over because the last page flipped past.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, it's so... I still get chills thinking about it because it was such a integral book series and also movie series of my childhood.
Yeah.
It was very dark, but I think it was a very great picture of what stories can be.
Yes. And the hero's journey and how that is incorporated into this society.
It's a coming-of-age story.
It really is.
It's I think every story put together. There's aspects of everything. The world's so big that you can do things with it. You can imagine what it's like in other districts. You can imagine what it's like to be Katniss, to be all these characters. And every character introduced, aside from the random ones that die in the first book, you kind of feel for them. It's a book that makes you think. above anything else.
Which are the best kinds of books.
Yeah, and I can see why.
Like the Phoenix, huh?
Yeah, the Phoenix will make you think. And I think that's really awesome and incredible about a book. Mm-hmm. That if a book can do that, I almost expect every book to do it.
I agree, yeah.
And I think the best stories are the stories that try to do everything while not looking like they're doing everything. Mm-hmm. And I think The Hunger Games does that.
One of my favorite quotes, I have 2 quotes that I think really resonate with me in reading. And the first one is by J.K. Rowling, and it's, "The stories we love best live in us forever." And the second one is, I'm not really sure who it's by, but, "Reading gives you a place to go when you want to stay where you are."
Those are really great quotes, and I think they picture Hunger Games and reading and stories in general. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to thank you for coming to talk.
It was my pleasure.
Oh, you're wonderful.
Oh, darling.
Not a student at Pfeiffer? Love books filled to the brim with riveting poems, fiction, and creative nonfiction pieces? Then pre-order our 60th anniversary edition of The Phoenix and brag to all your friends that you're holding a rich piece of history. For more info, check our link in the description.